The Middle Passage. Long before the wooden giants carved scars into the Atlantic, the ocean was a library of silence. Adisa, the scribe of the deep, stood upon the shores of the Gold Coast, his feet sinking into the warm sand. To him, the sea was not a barrier, but a vast, breathing parchment waiting for the stories of his people to be written in currents and foam. He carried a staff carved with symbols of the earth, a bridge between the land and the infinite blue. Then came the year 1500, and the horizon changed. Great ships with wings of canvas arrived, casting long, dark shadows that chilled the water. Adisa watched from the cliffs as the first of these vessels pulled away, heavy with the weight of stolen lives. He saw the wake of the ship, a churning white wound that refused to heal. He knew then that the ocean would no longer be a place of silence, but a witness to a tragedy so profound it would alter the very instincts of the wild. Beneath the surface, the change was felt in the heartbeat of the predators. Macon, a great shark of the deep, felt the vibration of the wooden hulls through his lateral lines. He looked up, his sleek body hovering in the sun-dappled water. To him, the ships were not vessels of trade, but dinner bells. He began to associate the sound of creaking timber and the splashing of heavy objects with a feast that required no hunt. A grim pact was formed between the iron chains above and the teeth below. As the decades bled into centuries, Macon was joined by others. He and his mate circled the wake of a slave ship, their movements synchronized with the vessel's rhythmic tossing on the swells. The sharks no longer followed the seasonal migrations of the fish. They followed the triangle of trade. This behavior was not just a habit. It was becoming a biological imperative, a memory etched into their very blood. They became the living shadows of the Middle Passage, the silent sentinels of a route paved in sorrow. From his ethereal watch, Adisa wept. He held a scroll of translucent kelp, recording the names that the world tried to erase. Every soul cast overboard. Those who succumbed to the fever and those who chose the sea over the chain became a part of the ocean's salt. Adisa felt the trauma settling into the seabed, a layer of grief that the currents could never wash away. He realized that nature itself was being reshaped by the cruelty of man, turning the sea into a graveyard of unremembered dreams. By the time the ships reached their peak in the 1700s, the horror had become hereditary. Macon swam alongside a young pup, guiding the small creature along the path of the wooden giants. The young shark did not need to be told where to go. The pulse of the slave route was already thrumming in its fins. The trauma of the passage had bypassed the mind and settled into the DNA, a map of human cruelty inherited by a species that knew nothing of gold or sugar, only the scent of the wake. Adisa watched as the ocean floor became a mirror of the stars, each point of light a soul resting in the silt. He saw the way the currents began to curve differently, influenced by the heat of the tragedy and the constant presence of the followers in the deep. The Middle Passage was no longer just a human route. It was a physical alteration of the Atlantic. The sea was carrying the weight of the millions, and its very chemistry was changing with the burden of so much unspent life. By the time 1866 arrived and the last of the ships vanished, the biological damage was done. Macon's descendants still swam the paths of the ancestors, even when no ships remained to follow. The instinct survived the era, a ghostly echo of the centuries of blood. The sharks carried the map of the Middle Passage in their migrations, a biological monument to the lives lost. The trauma was no longer just a human story. It was an environmental truth, a haunting that lived in the fins of the deep. Generations later, Nia worked to transform this sorrow into a foundation for the future. As a lead architect for the Black Infrastructure Trust, she studied the strange, persistent paths of the Atlantic sharks. She realized these migration lines were not just maps of death, but the blueprints for a reclaimed network of memory. The trust aimed to build a new bridge of liberation across the Atlantic, using the very data of the deep to honor those lost and provide for those living. In the space between the tides, Adisa appeared to Nia. The scribe and the architect met where the foam kisses the sand, He handed her his staff, now shimmering with the light of the trust. "The memory is in the blood," he whispered, "but the future is in the structure we build from it." The sharks continued their ancient, somber patrol, but now they served as the living pillars of the Black Infrastructure Trust. A reminder that while the ocean never forgets, it can also be the site of a profound and lasting liberation.